Hey guys, Dylan from the Geek Duo here, and today I'll be bringing you my Hero Academia Chapter 301 read-through. Now, this chapter is titled Careless Handling of Fire, Part 1. So this is obviously carrying over into the next chapter, and that was pretty obvious by the way this chapter ended, but the title confirms it. Now, I am slightly irritated at the start of this recording because I've just come out of 16 and a half minutes of recording this episode, only to find out 2 pages away from the end that I'm not sure if it was at the start of the episode or if it was partway through, but OBS decided to change audio input devices halfway through a recording. So I don't know where along that video my voice stopped coming through. And I was happy with the voices I was giving to the characters in this chapter. Anyway, this chapter is predominantly a Todoroki backstory chapter because we get some of Anji's and Rei's relationship prior to the kids. We get their, what I assume to be their first actual meeting, an important date of theirs, and then we jump forward to after Toya was born, and we see several other points throughout that timeline. We start the chapter at the Himura household, which is Rei's family home. I'm going to assume that 3 of the 4 speech bubbles in this first page, where we get the Himura family part of this chapter, is the father, Rei's father, talking to Endeavor, because contextually in this My Hero Academia universe, it seems as though that's the way in which this sort of dynamic would go down. And one of them is the mother. I'll start with the mother, where she says, "It is such an honor to meet you, Endeavor-san." And the father says, "Never in my wildest dreams had I imagined I'd be talking with the man dubbed the next candidate for number 1. The Himura name has an extensive history as a prestigious family line. The perfect partner for a top hero such as yourself." Now, I, along with many people in the fandom, for the longest time after learning that Anji and Rei had a quirk marriage, assumed that he used his number 2 hero status to sort of pay off the family to allow him to marry Rei, either pay her directly or pay her parents to marry her off to him. But it seems as though that's not the case. Well, it's sort of the case in that, yes, his status as the number 2 hero is playing a part in this. It's more that that's her father or parents' side of the deal, not Anji's side of the deal. Anyway, he says in his thoughts, "She was a woman like ice. Even knowing that it was a quirk marriage, she said she would become my wife for the sake of her family. Strong, yet if I touched her, she might have melted away." We then jump ahead I don't know, to a date where Ray and Angie are walking through what looks to be a botanic garden, when all of a sudden he notices that she's stopped to stare at a specific patch of flowers. It's like, do you like these flowers? Yes, beautiful, aren't they? These flowers that she'd stopped to look at were the exact same flowers that he's been sending to her hospital room. We then jump back to present day for a page where the shocked Endeavour is looking at Ray in his hospital room. He says, "Ray, are you alright?" "Not at all. That's why I'm here." We then jump to wherever Darby is staying. I said in my previous attempt at recording this video that this looks to be the cultist house that they robbed, at least from the outside. You guys remember back in My Villain Academia where there was this cult of people against mutant type quirks? Well, those who had been mutated by their quirks, and they wanted the purity of human form back or something. I don't even remember their deal, but yeah, that Shigaraki and the League killed all the members of and then robbed the place. I think they're back at that building, and we see Darby lying on a mattress. Actually, this might be a different place because this looks like the same room that he recorded his message to Japan. I'm just now realizing that. Anyway, we see that the scars on his body, specifically the ones in his neck and upper torso region, and his arms to the elbow, those scarred areas have been blackened from his fight with Endeavour and Shoto. He said, "Really roasted myself there. Can't feel anything. That guy's my old man. There's no way that was enough to kill him. And even if he was at the point where he wanted to die, I wouldn't allow it. Now it's his turn to come forward and face the public. Can't wait to see that miserable expression on his face. All I've been waiting for. It's taken so much to get this far. Angie Todoroki, Mum, Fuyumi-chan, Natsu-kun, Shoto. Watch me in the pits of hell." We see that as he's thinking back on his family, his eye starts to bleed again, and we follow this drop of blood down the side of his face, and it drips into the next panel. A flashback in the Todoroki household. "I've been waiting ages for you to have a day off so we could train together. Why are you saying we can't do it now?" "I've told you several times. I'm doing this for your own good." We see that Endeavour has called off all training sessions between him and Toya after his quirk started to burn him, because we see that in this panel he's got little tufts of white hair and his left arm is bandaged up, and remember that was the arm that we saw first burn in the original flashback. It then jumps forward, I don't know how long. I think this is after the birth of Fuyumi, where he's getting lab results back for Toya. The doctor says, "Quite a peculiar case. In regards to his quirk, he's inherited your fire. However, his body is dominated by his mother's genes. To be precise, he's developed a body that has an aptitude for the cold, rather than a tolerance for the fire. Well, this method of designing children, It's a taboo in this generation of quirks. It's better if you quit now anyway. We then see a news report on All Might that says, "Today he's saved as many as 62 towns. With All Might on our side, we shall never submit to evil." And we see that Endeavor was watching this angrily, and he thinks back to something he said to Toya, which is, "Toya, if it's you, you can surpass All Might." We then cut back to the Todoroki household as we see Toya is watching this same news broadcast next to Fuyumi. And this is where I say that the doctor's results were after Fuyumi was born, because I think this was happening about the same time, like almost exactly the same time. And we see that Fuyumi sitting on the couch looking about 3 years old, and Toya's hair is almost the inverse of Shoto's, except for the small bit of red at the front. It's almost exactly half red, half white. "So what if I get burned a bit? I can handle it. I'm the one who understands my body best." But Fuyumi doesn't like seeing Toya covered in owies. Fuyumi-chan doesn't get it. Girls just don't understand. But I'm worried. I've already decided that I want to surpass him. Dad's the one who ignited that feeling in me. We see Toya get up and storm out of the room with tears in his eyes. And then we fast forward again to nighttime. Don't know how much longer has passed, whether this is that same night or it's months down the track. But we see a conversation between Ray and Endeavor in his training room. Ray says, "But that's too much. It's just cruel. Toya can already tell you want something from your children." "No matter what I tried telling him, he shows up with new burns every day. He's inherited my foolishness as well. If we want him to give it up, then we have no choice. Toya, he can't be the one to surpass him." Ray realizes that what Endeavor's saying makes sense, and we see this realization on her face, but we also see just how much it takes out of her as well, because the next page is a montage. We see Ray holding baby Natsuo with an excited Fuyumi next to her, and in a separate panel we see Toya looking almost betrayed. We then have a split screen of an angry Endeavor, All Might smiling, and then an even angrier Endeavor, likely after learning that Natsuo doesn't have the quirk he desired either. And we see Ray, almost to the extent that we saw her when she poured the boiling water on Shoto, with the just sunken eyes, almost not present look in her eyes. And in the next page we get a full page panel of a crying baby Shoto. And then there's the reactions of 3 Todoroki members. We see Angie looking down at him with pure joy, Ray lovingly looking down at him, but also she's somewhat out of it mentally, and we see Toya just dead faced, no expression or anything. And then we cut to nighttime, a training yard out in a forest of sorts, where a crazed looking Toya is throwing fire at what I can assume to be training dummies, as he says, "Dad, I can surpass him too. Look, I'm able to make such strong flames. Look at me." It then cuts back inside the Todoroki household as Toya is being told off for his continued training by Endeavor. He says, "Stop it. Why don't you understand? You're getting this burnt and you still don't realize. Toya, you need to look elsewhere. Play with Fuyumi or Natsuo. Make some friends at school. There are other worlds outside of being a hero. Don't you understand? Eventually you'll forget all about it." "But everyone at school says they're going to be heroes. There's no way you'd understand. Because I'm your son." We get a crazed look on Toya's face as he's looking up at his dad, almost on par to whenever Midoriya goes full feral mode. I'm going to specifically point out the fight against Overhaul, where his face is just full shadowed except for the wild eyes in his mouth. This is almost what would happen if you were looking straight on to Midoriya at that moment. Ray panics and says, "He needs to cool down. Dad ignited it in me. It won't go away. I can't get it out of my head. Look at me, Endeavor. Look at me." We see that he starts to ignite his hair and his arm as he wiggles his way out of Endeavor's grasp on his shoulder and launches himself towards Ray, who is holding baby Shoto. And that is all we see as of the flashback, as the last panel of the chapter is present Ray saying, "The one in the most pain isn't you. And you weren't the only one who refused to look at that child." Anyway, this gives context outside of Endeavor's and Toya's biased views of the events that transpired, because Endeavor, he blames himself wholeheartedly, saying he ignored the signs in Toya. He's as good as the reason that Toya's dead and everything, whereas Toya maliciously blames Endeavor for everything that happened. And this is sort of getting Ray's perspective on it, an external observer, where neither party's in the right, but Endeavor is more in the right than Toya was in this situation. But at the same time, both parents were choosing to ignore it. Whether consciously or subconsciously, we will find out. I'm leaning more to semi-consciously by Ray's last speech bubble in this. But yeah, they overlooked what was happening to Toya because he'd been told up until, let's say, 8. Let's put him at 8. So I'll have him 5 years older than Fuyumi, who's half of Endeavor's current age. Anyway, so that would mean he's 28 now in the current manga. He's 8 in this chapter. Well, 8 at the start of this chapter with Fuyumi next to him. Okay, so he's been told for 8 years that he will be the one to surpass Oma. He's Daddy's favorite boy in that he has all the power that Endeavor could have wished for and everything. And then suddenly, one day, his whole entire world takes a 180-degree turn in which case he's told he can't train. He's not going to be the one to surpass All Might. There's more kids on the way that are going to be taking that role. And with each child that comes, with each more day that attention is taken away from Toya and his goal, he becomes more desperate to prove himself, training himself more, burning himself more, getting scolded more, so trying to go even higher beyond. And it's just a perpetual cycle that eventually led to Shoto's birth, where finally the one to surpass All Might was born. And this is what broke Toya. As we can see, not long after that, he's crying while smiling and burning training dummies in the forest alone at night. And then he ignites himself in the family home to attack his baby brother because his dad finally tells him straight to his face, "You can't do this. You're getting... just please do something other than this. Whether it be playing with your sisters, whether it be making friends, just do something else." And he's like, "No, can't you see how powerful I am? You don't need this baby. I'm all you need. I'll just take this baby off your hands for you." And that... I'd say that his mental snap at this age is worse than Shigaraki's, because, well, no, I can't really say that. It's completely different, but the way in which he handled his mental break was different. He's almost on Toga level in this chapter, towards the end. Like, in her flashback during My Villain Academia, with the bird and the classmate in that, that's almost the level of crazy that... No, I think he's even surpassed that. And yeah, that's the Toya we've got. He went from mysterious man to the son of the #1 hero to batshit crazy. Sure, he has reined it in a lot, but we see that in the ways in which he interacts with his family in present day, he still does let the crazy slip out a bit. Anyway, that's been an impromptu analysis on the psyche of one Toya Todoroki that no one asked for. So with that being said, I think I'm going to end this episode here. Catch you in the next one.